All right, folks, this is Harris Sultan. In my last video, I said I'm going to keep an open mind vis-a-vis Anthony Albanese's new hate speech laws. Not because I'm gullible, not because I easily fall for their propaganda, but I want to keep an open mind. I have made a commitment to myself that I'm not going to go follow my gut instincts or just become conspiratorial. I'm going to follow where the evidence leads me. So I will criticize the government only when I have clear evidence. And it hasn't even been 2 weeks since the Bondi Beach Massacre happened. And we saw Anthony Albanese, Penny Wong, Tony Burke, all these politicians coming out and saying that we will crack down on anti-Semitism and we will also crack down on far-right extremism. But they never mentioned Islamism. I was like, okay, maybe, they don't want to step on people's toes. Maybe they want to be polite. Let's wait and see. And lo and behold, true to their form, without fail, they're doing exactly what they did in the UK. Or I'm not even saying that they are doing it as some sort of a conspiracy. I think certain ideologies that are dominant in the West will always lead to this result. So this far left Marxist woke ideology is always going to be heavy-handed towards the natives and is always going to appease the minorities, even though they're the troublemakers. They just don't have any other solution. So my dear Aussies, please, I've been sounding this alarm for many years that whatever happens in the UK and the rest of the Western world ends up happening in Australia. I thought it's going to happen in 2026, 2027, but it's happening now. Maybe because it's the Bondi Beach Massacre that happened and that has moved the timeline a couple of years forward, but regardless, it's happening. So in order for you to understand what is going to happen in Australia, you have to understand what happened in the UK, not what is happening in the UK. They are much further ahead on the timeline. What's already happened in the UK. I'm only going to give you a couple of examples because I've been covering it in real time for the last 3 years, and they're doing exactly the same thing in Australia. In Britain, they have a name for it. They call it two-tier policing. So what they saw that in the wake of October 7th terrorist attack, the British police will go full riot gear on the natives, but they would go absolutely quiet and silent when it comes to dealing with the Islamists. Let me show you some videos. Look at this. So in 2024, British patriots said that we are not going to let the Islamists, these pro-Palestinian people, hijack their war memorials like the cenotaph. The government should be safeguarding these monuments, but they let them desecrate the war memorials. They would put Palestinian symbols, free Gaza, all that kind of jazz on British war memorials. Mark my words, it's going to happen here. It's going to happen here in Australia. Lest we forget our war memorials, our Anzac memorials in St. Kilda and wherever they are in Sydney and other cities, they are going to happen here. I think some might have happened already, but Australia is a little bit different. Australia is still majority white Australia. So it's not as bad, but it's getting there if we don't act on it. So the British patriots said that we're not going to let you desecrate our war memorials. Our grandfathers died for it. And look how the police would come out, all guns blazing. Look at They broke the skull of this guy. He went to hospital. Enough seen. It's about a 3-minute long video. But when it comes to the Islamists, people who say globalize the intifada, people who chant jihad, this is how they talk to them.
Please come down, sir.
Please come down, sir. No riot gear. In fact, there were some Islamist protests happened in Tower Hamlets about a month ago, and the British police didn't even turn up. They said, oh, things could get out of hand. But when it comes to the patriots, the natives, they come out all guns blazing with their horses, with their batons, with their helmets, full riot gear, what I showed you. So in one of these pro-Palestine rallies in 2023, this speech was given by these jihadis in central London.
To liberate people in the concentration camp called Palestine.
Jihad!
What is the solution?
So this was organized by Hizb ut-Tahrir, which has recently been banned in Australia, finally. And this wasn't banned in the UK after this speech. So this guy is asking for fellow Muslims to wage jihad on Israel. There are calls for jihad against a Western-style liberal democracy, our ally. And people complained about this. People said that, what is this? Why are they promoting jihad on the streets of London? Actually, watch the full video and then I'll explain to you what happened.
Fight in the way of Allah, those who fight you. The Zionist entity has a military. They have a police force. They have a judiciary. They have an apparatus, an army, fighting, killing, massacring our people. Islam says, jihad fi sabilillah, that the Muslim armies move to rescue the people of Palestine. That is the solution.
They're saying Muslim armies should invade Israel. So he's calling for jihad. Jihad, literally, this is what jihad means, holy war. If you think that Muslims are being oppressed, then you wage jihad on the oppressor of Muslims. They don't follow the UN, they don't follow international law, they have their own set of values. Okay, fine, whatever. Do them in your own country. By the way, they're not allowed to do that in the UAE or in Saudi Arabia, but in Western countries, they're allowed to do it. Hizb ut-Tahrir was not banned at that point. It was banned later down the track because that's the snake that can't keep itself from biting. And in Australia, it just got banned 2 days ago. The Bondi Beach massacre had to happen. So instead of cracking down on Hizb ut-Tahrir or on these people, you know what the Met Police said? This is what they said. Not all calls for jihad are violent. So Arabic-speaking officers and lawyers will be present in the Met's control room, while trained officers will be on the ground to spot hate placards. So it's like cat guarding the milk, basically. So they've hired other Muslims to tell them that, hey, is jihad call for a violent armed struggle? No, that's not what it means. Jihad means inner struggle. So the British public started noticing this behavior back in 2023. So they came up with this term, two-tier policing. That you have one set of standards for the Islamists and then one set of standards for the natives or the patriots. So I've been saying that this is going to happen in Australia. And ladies and gentlemen, it is happening in Australia. So let me remind you again. An Islamist went to a beach, saw some Jews, and opened his fire, killing 14 people. He went there to kill Jews, okay? That was his hatred. That was globalized the Intifada in action. That was the jihad in action that they've been preaching nonstop. So Anthony Albanese comes out and says, anti-Semitism is a problem. Far-right extremism is a problem. And Islamophobia is a problem. He still hasn't mentioned Islamism or jihad once. He hasn't. Neither has Tony Burke. Let me play you this video so you understand what's actually happening.
We need to continue to address Islamophobia wherever we see it, wherever we see any discrimination against any group, and particularly a targeting of groups. We have seen a rise of neo-Nazis that is just, quite shocking. You know, you and I have been around a while. The idea that 20 years ago, if you had said to me that people would openly, without masks or anything, be dressed in black outside Parliament House in Victoria or in New South Wales, is quite shocking. We need to address that. There's a range of things that are contributing to that. Social media is one of it. People think they can say
Islam has got nothing to do with that, of course.
Whatever they like anonymously online. Some of the hate which is being propagated as well. But I'm optimistic. I think overwhelmingly Australians want to get on.
He's the worst Prime Minister in Australian history. The worst by far. Far right-wing extremism has grown and it will keep growing. Wherever Islam goes, people become radicalized. Look at India. Indians have become more Hindu nationalists. That didn't used to be like that. Britain, America, Canada, all of these countries are experiencing a surge in far-right extremism, but also people moving to the right. I am center-right now. I'm center-right right now. And the vast majority sits there. But yes, some people will trickle over to far-right extremism. Why is that? Because they're seeing that Islamists can kill people in broad daylight, and you still don't get to mention their extremist ideology. That angers people. Two-tier policing, two-tier justice system. Oh, I haven't even gone into two-tier justice system. So as I said in my last video, let's see, is he going to crack down on Islamists? He hasn't. This is what they've done so far. So this is far left pro-Palestine extremist. They arrested him in Perth. His name is Martin Thomas Glenn. He's been charged and denied bail for conduct intended to racially harass in the form of anti-Semitism. So he was on the side of the Islamists. So he's pro-Pali. He's a far left woke extremist. Okay? I have no sympathy for him. Okay? I really don't care. As I said in my last video, that I have no sympathy for these people. If you need new hate speech laws to shut down these violent extremists, I actually don't care, as long as you apply the law equally. Justice must not only be done, it must also be seen to be done. So what we're seeing right now, this is what we're seeing. So the far left extremists, gone, okay. And a far right neo-Nazi British man who is a permanent resident of Australia, has a family here in Australia. He is being deported straight away for having neo-Nazi symbols in his house. The 43-year-old faces deportation after being charged with displaying Nazi symbols and promoting extremist ideology online. He's being deported, okay? Again, I have no love for far left extremists or far right extremists, so my heart is not bleeding for them. I'm not crying out for them. But why is your policing so two-tiered? Just like in Britain, it's the same thing in Britain. The Islamists are untouchable. Let me show you what I'm talking about. This Sydney Sheikh, Kamal Abu Maryam, this is what he said. Oh Allah, beat the usurping Zionist Jews. We hope you count them and kill them one by one, and don't keep any one of them. Shake the ground under their feet, make an example of them. And just like the Met Police, they said that, oh, jihad just means in a struggle. Let's have a look what the New South Wales Police have said. New South Wales Police said, as a part of the investigation, the content of the sermon video was reviewed and it was ascertained that it did not meet the threshold of any criminal offense. This is not criminal, but having Nazi symbols is criminal. Okay? Again, as I said, I don't care about those neo-Nazis, but at least apply the law equally. How is saying that kill those Jews, shake the grounds underneath their feet? How does that not meet the threshold of criminal investigation? How? It's two-tier justice, guys. That's what I told you. That's what I kept telling you, that this is what's going to happen in Australia, and it's happening right before our eyes. That's not it. Let me show you another Islamist, an Islamist doctor. There was a Hizb ut-Tahrir extremist doctor working for the NHS as well, the UK's Medicare, and at least they sacked him. I think he came back after a year. We have our own extremist Muslim doctor. Melbourne doctor Muhammad Gilan posted, live like Sinwar or die trying. Sinwar, the guy responsible for killing 1,200 Jews on a single day in Israel. The biggest terrorist event since 9/11. This guy.
Liam Mendes from The Australian. I just wanted to have a chat to you about your social media posts. Why are you as a doctor supporting a listed terror organ? Liam Mendes from The Australian. Why are you supporting a listed terror organisation? You shared posts saying, live like Sinwar, die trying. You can be vocal about what's happening in the Middle East without praising the death of an entire race.
I guess that didn't meet the threshold either. So that's what Anthony Albanese is doing. Two-tier policing has well and truly arrived in Australia. I don't know. I think I'm going to get a knock on the door. He hasn't mentioned Islamism or the Islamic ideology being responsible for extremism in Australian society, which is also fueling far-right extremism in Australia, okay? It's Islamism.
You and I have been around a while. The idea that 20 years ago, if you had said to me that people would openly, without masks or anything, be dressed in black outside Parliament House in Victoria or in New South Wales, is quite shocking. We need to address that.
Yes, Anthony Albanese is right. 20 years ago, we did not expect the NSN. We did not expect people dressed in black making Nazi salutes in Melbourne or Sydney. We did not see that. We didn't. Because there was no extremism in our society. 20 years ago, Islamists were not holding hostages in cafes like Lint Cafe. Islamists were not massacring beachgoers like the one we saw at Bondi Beach. It's happening because you do not want to touch one radical ideology, which is the source of all evil, okay? Now, as I said, I'm not saying that there is a grand conspiracy to destroy the West like that. I think the ideology that these people follow, this far left Marxist woke ideology, they cannot come up with any other solution. Because once you establish that multiculturalism is a virtue and we have to treat all cultures equally, then of course you're going to protect even the problem child, that is Islam. We don't see Hindu terrorists, we don't see Buddhist terrorists, we don't see Vietnamese people. None of those cultures have posed a civilizational threat. Islam has, because none of those cultures have this innate desire to take over. They just don't have it. That's why their second and third generations assimilate and integrate. You see Vietnamese, you see Chinese Australians, you see Japanese Americans, you see Vietnamese Australians. They're as much Australians as anyone else. But why is it that the second and third generation Muslims don't integrate? Why? I'll tell you why. Because it's in their doctrine. They are trained from childhood that this is the system of the infidel. We don't respect that. Have a listen.
Our religion that we have to hate them for the sake of Allah.
By them, he means you, ordinary Westerners. We have to hate them.
We love what Allah loves, and on the opposite of that, we hate what Allah hates.
And Allah hates the infidels.
Does Allah hate shirk?
Christians and Jews are mushrikeens. They do shirk, meaning they do not believe in the oneness of Allah. So Allah hates those people, meaning Allah hates the Christians and Jews and atheists and Hindus and everyone basically.
Yes.
Al-adawa, enmity and hatred, meaning we're enemies. Let's not beat around the bush. We don't love each other. We're not on the same page. We are not friends. Does that make sense? We are enemies.
Yeah.
And this is not for personal reasons.
Yeah.
It's not over land. It's not over politics. It's not over money. It's because we love Allah.
Oh, yeah.
Like, we can't help it. We love Allah so much. The one who gave us everything that we have. And you do shirk. You worship another God besides him.
Like, what more do you want? What more do you want? These guys are not some obscure extremist Muslims. They have huge followings. The proof is in the pudding. If you have ever asked yourself this question, why is it that it's only the Muslims that do not integrate? Second and third generation Muslims, they don't integrate. They intimidate and provoke. They take over entire cities. They've done that in Bradford, Manchester, parts of London. It's gone. And you know what? The British people are now being told, they are being conditioned into accepting that you are going to be a minority. Okay? You're going to be a minority. Accept it. No, you shouldn't accept it. I'm not making a racial argument. Race is the biggest phenotype of any culture or of any way of life, okay? Australia, in my opinion, should stay 90% white. Britain should stay 90% white. I'm not saying that because of racial superiority, but I'm saying that if Australia has to remain Australia, and by Australia I mean Australian values, Australian culture, the culture and the set of values that built Australia, then in order for it to remain like that, in order for it to remain a first world country, then it has to remain 90% white. That should have happened with Britain as well, but Britain has fallen to 80% white. Again, not a racial argument, it's a cultural argument I'm making. British Bangladeshis, British Pakistanis, they do not behave like white Britons. That's why when you go to Bengali areas, when you go to Pakistani areas in Britain, or even Indian areas, they're filthy. They're dirty, disgusting. You go to English countryside, it's clean. Cultures matter. Yes, we can differentiate those cultures visibly through a racial lens because, as I said, race is the most visible phenotype of any culture. But you do find some exceptions. Like, for example, me, I live like a Western man. I don't live like a Pakistani man. I don't live like a Muslim man. There's nothing Islamic or Pakistani in me anymore. But the vast majority of people stay within their culture. They're loyal to their own culture. But cultures that are more tolerant, as I said, for example, the Hindu culture or the Chinese or the Vietnamese or Japanese people in America, there's so many other cultures, or the Italians or Greeks, because they're not hostile, they integrate and assimilate within a couple of generations. Islam is a very dominant ideology. It's a very dominant culture. It actively discourages its followers to not integrate.
No integration, no multiculturalism, no diversity, no tolerance. I've got my own deen, you got your own deen. You got your democracy, we got our own sharia. You got your own free mixing, we got our own nikah. own cheating within the marketplace, your own credit cards. We know we got our own economic system. We got our own foreign policy. We got our own deen. Very.
They're so hypocrite though. They have their everything. They have their own economic system. They have their own Sharia system, but they still live in the West. Why? Go back then. Go back and show us your superior culture. Build some amazing countries and show us that, hey, you know what? Our system works, but no, shameless. There's a massive contradiction. There's cognitive dissonance in their brains. But again, not our problem. Let me give you another example of two-tier justice, yeah? This Labour councillor said this.
Did nothing back, and we need to hold their throats and get rid of them all.
So this guy is a Labour councillor. So this is a pro-Palestine rally. And look at this idiot woman. So he's a Labour councillor, and he's talking about the Zionists on the streets of London that we need to cut their throats off. So he appeared before the magistrate and he said, look, I'm sorry, this is not me. I just said it in a fit of rage. And the magistrate accepted it, found him not guilty, gave him a community order, and that's it. Gone back to normal. But over 2,000 right-wing conservative people have been arrested in the UK, have criminal record now. Some have gone to jail for posting mean tweets. Lucy Connolly is the most famous one. Yes, the wording was violent, but she had no prior convictions. She had no criminal record before, but she was given a 24-month prison sentence. Why was she not given this consideration that, some violent thug had killed 3 little girls at a Taylor Swift concert, otherwise known as the Southport Massacre? And in that moment, she was so disheartened, she was so hurt and broken that she said something that she shouldn't have said. But no, they gave her 24-month prison. But this guy, no, it's okay. He just said it. He got angry. So our British friends have called it two-tier justice. See, we have two-tier policing, we have two-tier justice, and they have two-tier Keir Starmer. My dear Aussies, this is what's about to happen in Australia. They've arrested a far-left pro-Pally guy. Okay. They've deported a far-right neo-Nazi back to Britain. But none of the Islamists have been arrested or deported yet. None. Not that we know of. Otherwise, tell us. Tell us. Come on. This guy, remember? This Wissam Haddad. He's the guy who radicalized the Bondi Beach shooter. Okay, so he was prosecuted in 2023 for anti-Semitic sermons, post-October 7th attacks. Guess what? He holds a current New South Wales firearm license, despite historical ties to alleged Bondi shooter Naveed Akram, whom, of course, he denies knowing. What are you so scared of? Show us, then we'll say, oh, you know what? Okay, they're being heavy-handed across the board, but no, selective justice. And that's why I'm expecting a knock on my door. But I'm not going anywhere. You know what? I took an oath to be loyal to the Australian people and the Australian Constitution, not to two-tier Keir or Anthony Albanese's government. So I'll keep talking. As I said at the start, I was approaching this with an open mind. I would look and see how the government applies these new hate speech laws. I guess we'll see. But early indicators are showing that two-tier policing has arrived in Australia. And I think we're going to see Islamists get away with a lot. No deportations are coming. I don't think there are going to be many arrests. However, they're going to use that as an excuse to curb right-wing extremism and maybe some far-left extremism as well, which I don't see much of that happening either, because these guys are sympathetic towards that ideology. They are. I showed you in my last video, Anthony Albanese is a massive pro-Pally intifada guy. He's done really well to keep that under wraps. When he ran for office, nobody knew about that. So he was hoping that it just stays in the past. But he's the worst prime minister in history. Okay, guys, we need to boot him out. Luckily, we're going to have elections in a couple of years. Things are going to get much worse. It would be a lot easier for the majority of Australians who are still sleeping to see who Anthony Albanese is. Two-tier Keir is the most hated and reviled prime minister in British history. Anthony Albanese is still leading the polls. So, the vast majority of Australia is still leaning towards his direction. So I think a lot of Aussies need to wake up. Aussies are very different. I think Aussies have a short fuse. Aussies will wake up a lot quicker than their British counterparts. That is going to happen. So we're going to keep talking about it. And I think Pauline Hanson is our only choice. We need someone as strong as Pauline Hanson. Pauline Hanson is clear. She will have the mandate of the public. We need to stand up for Australia, Australian values. Everything else becomes secondary. So I don't think Anthony Albanese is going to apply these hate speech laws uniformly across the board. I think he's going to witch hunt certain factions only, to whom I have no loyalty or I don't care about any type of extremism. But as I said, if you're going to selectively apply the laws, then you have no idea what's coming your way, Anthony Albanese. You're going to alienate and antagonize a high trust society. Australia is one of the most high trust societies. I've traveled the world. I've seen other countries. I've seen other democracies, how they have gone from high trust to low trust societies. We were put under lockdowns for 6 months. Not a lot of people protested. We just took it. That's how much we trusted our governments. But now the tide is turning. I don't think people are going to trust. People are going to see that how you're protecting one community, which is by far the most troublesome. It's the Islamists who kill people. As much as I despise the neo-Nazis, they haven't committed any violence yet. The NSN is not responsible for any violence yet, okay? But if you protect the Islamists, then they will become violent. And who's going to suffer? Us, ordinary people in the middle. So don't be a dick, Anthony Albanese. You already are the worst prime minister in Australian history, but maybe try to be a bit better.